Hi everybody, I hope this video finds everyone doing well. Kind of want to do a follow-up, a couple of videos that ex-elder's wife Jane Doe had just recently done. One of them was from the February 22nd, 1972 Awake. Watchtower was doing a series of articles, Your Word is Truth. This particular one is entitled, Who Wrote the Pentateuch? Something in that video caught my attention, and it's found on page 27, and I'm going to just kind of like quote right about in through here, and I'll tell you why I found it interesting. This is from the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, Volume 3, page 726. The documents themselves were composed at various times, beginning in the 10th century BC and ending in the middle of the 6th, when the whole of the primary history was completed. Now, we all know that the Watchtower Bible Craft Society likes to cherry pick portions of an article, and it just so happens to be that I have that particular volume of the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, and it's interesting to know that this portion of the Pentateuch is 15 pages long. And I find it interesting in this article that Watchtower wrote in 1972, they only quote from two small places from those 15 pages. So I kind of want to read the last sentence in this article because it really describes a much larger picture of what Watchtower's not telling you. The last paragraph. Thus, the confusion is seen to rest not with the Bible, but with those adhering to the documentary theory. The Bible's testimony that Moses did write the Pentateuch stands unimpeached. Now remember that. The Bible's testimony that Moses did write the Pentateuch stands unimpeached. So what I'm going to do, since I have the hard copy of the resource that Watchtower is cherry picking from, I'm going to read the second to last and the last paragraphs. Now it's a pretty lengthy read, so you'll have to just bear with me. And I'm going to try to read this without putting my usual emotions into a reading, because it should become obvious what Watchtower doesn't want their audience, at least, to recognize about the Pentateuch that, you know, the people that put this Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible together recognize. So I'm reading on the same page as Watchtower did, page 726, and when I get down to the bottom, it will include the portion of this that Watchtower did quote from. Okay, the Pentateuch is the end product of an incredibly long process of accumulation, transmission, and redaction. Its original traditions go back to dim antiquity, e.g., and now this is in parentheses, e.g., the traditions behind the flood story must be many thousands of years old, unbracketed, and were transmitted orally for hundreds of years. Folk tales, cult legends, etiological stories, and the like, each with its characteristic form, shape, and polished through repeated telling. These were linked into more complex collections until a connected narrative emerged. built out of the basic pattern of the Credo, or Confession of Faith. These poetic materials were consolidated into the official tradition of the Confederation around its sanctuary during the period of the Judges. Likewise, going back to patriarchal times was a legal tradition around which gathered customs and precedences, and from which emerged the various bodies of law preserved in the Pentateuch. With few exceptions, the mass of the material is pre-monarchic, pre-monarch, there we go, I'll just put it that way. Cultic practice is also of great antiquity, and in various collections the Pentateuch preserves the sacral customs of early Israel. Because of the tenacity and conservatism of religious observance, it is almost impossible to trace development. But in general, the Pentateuchal cult legislation reflects the practice of the early monarchy. Next paragraph. Formal classification, oral tradition, cultic setting, and function are important new tools in the struggle to understand the Pentateuch. Even more significant is the mass of archaeological data, which increasingly provides an external, historically reliable check upon the theories imposed in the Pentateuchal material and the reconstructions made of them. The Pentateuch apparently consists of essentially authentic data concerning the history of Israel from the time of the patriarchs down to the death of Moses, but including cultic, legal, and other technical data, which in their present form derive from later periods, particularly I'm going to have to pause right here because I cannot pronounce this word properly, so I'm going to cheat and let the computer do it for me, and then I will read what the definition is. So stand by for a moment.
Amphictyony. Amphictyony.
Amphictyony. This word, the definition is an association of neighboring states in ancient Greece to defend a common religious center. Okay. Also, broadly, an association of neighboring states for their common interests. Okay. So, let me find where I was. Okay, Amphictyony and the early monarchy. This is what Watchtower quotes. The documents themselves were composed at various times, beginning in the 10th century BCE and ending in the middle of the 6th, when the whole of the primary history was completed. That's all Watchtower quoted. Continuing on, during the next century, the Pentateuch was separated and officially promulgated as the authoritative word of God for Israel, the only infallible rule of faith and practice. It's interesting when an organization or any other Catholic, any other Christian faith has 15 pages of resource, they choose only what fits their own ideology. And after reading what I just read, I find it a little disturbing to reread the last paragraph from that 1972, February 22nd, Awake. Thus, the confusion is seen to rest not with the Bible, but with those adhering to the documentary theory. The Bible's testimony that Moses did write the Pentateuch stands unimpeached. Yeah, right. Right, Watchtower. See, the problem is, friends, is when Watchtower writes this stuff, their hope is that the reader doesn't have the resources available to fact check them and or to see that they've cherry-picked what they wanted, especially from this particular article that's 15 pages long regarding the Pentateuch. But there's something else that Jane Doe had done in a previous video regarding the book of Exodus, and I kind of want to focus on this for the conclusion. Exodus chapter 13, and I'm going to read starting at verse 17. Now just listen to the beginning of this and remember what I had read regarding how long it took, retelling these tales, polishing the details down to this present form. And in my opinion, it still needs to be polished because it can still be, it can still have holes shot right through it when you want to incorporate today's Christian theology regarding all of this. Okay? So Exodus chapter 13, verse 17. And it came about at the time of Pharaoh sending the people away that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, just because it was near. For God said, it might be the people will feel regret when they see war, and will certainly return to Egypt. Hence, God made the people go around about by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. But it was in battle formation that the sons of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt. And Moses kept taking once again. And Moses was taking Joseph's bones with him. Moses ain't writing this. It's a folk tale, as the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible points out. It's folk tales, it's legends, it's cultic speech. Okay? Verse 19, and Moses was taking Joseph's bone with him because he made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will without fail turn his attention to you, and you must take my bones up out of here with you. And they proceeded to depart from Succoth and to encamp at Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And Jehovah was going ahead of them in the daytime in a pillar of cloud to lead them by the way, and in the nighttime in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go in the daytime and nighttime. The pillar of cloud would not move away from before the people in the daytime, nor the pillar of fire in the nighttime. This is where the story needs to be refined according to today's Christian theology. Because the theology is God knows from the beginning, the finale. God is the most powerful God in the universe. He can do anything he wants. God, in the story in Exodus, brought 10 plagues upon the nation of Egypt, the Egyptians. God destroyed Pharaoh's army by parting the Red Sea and letting the walls of water fall in among them as they began to chase the Israelites. God, under the command, can make the sun stay still in the day sky. The sound of a trumpet, he can make the walls of Jericho crumble. God can send his angel to slay 185,000 military men, Sennacherib's army. But yet God shows his fear of the Philistines by projecting that fear back onto the Israelites. They just witnessed the plagues in Egypt. They just witnessed the destruction of Pharaoh's army. And now God says, well, I'm not going to bring you through the land of the Philistines, because if you see war, you're going to be afraid. Really? After what they just witnessed, they're going to be afraid? They're watching Jehovah lead them in a pillar of cloud fire by day and night, and they're going to be afraid? The story is BS, people. It's BS. You're going to sit here and try to convince me, Almighty Gus, that these stories are real and that I should fear them? Come on, let's get real with this, people. You have this story of all the things that this God can do, and he's showing fear of the Philistine army. I can't buy the crap no more, because it doesn't make sense. Because as they're sitting around their campfires through all the ages, drinking their coffee, drinking their wine, smoking their dope, that they didn't polish this story any better than what they did? It just doesn't make sense. Like Jane Doe keeps saying in her videos, it's not worth dying for. At this point, it's really even not worth arguing over, especially like someone like me, when I've got all of the resource material. Jane Doe, you've made this way too easy. Have a nice day, everybody.